Hanro out here changing the game. We engrave everything, no piece ever the same. From the cars to the trucks, bro, just hand me my Dremel. I'm talking exotic designs, but I make them look simple. Look at all this detail from the flip of the wrist. Ask West Coast Customs, it don't come with no risk. Let us help you roll in style and support a good cause. Yell America to the veterans and we cool with outlaws. Them birds move with precision, focused we on the mission. We wanna engrave the world, tell them give us a visit. Bring us anything metal, we can handle the rest. Hank Robinson the name and you know he the best.
Hey guys, what's going on? Hank Robinson here with Hanro Studios Engraving, here today to give you some tips and tricks with some new high-powered accessories from Dremel. All right, a few things on some PPE before we get started. We're gonna go ahead and make sure that we are wearing and have some eye protection. We're gonna need some latex gloves and a microfiber towel. So today we're gonna be using the Dremel 4000 with the flex shaft. There's a couple different options that we can use for our chucks. We've got a standard collet nut kit. It goes from a 1/32 to a 1/8 burr. And we've got the Dremel chuck. It's a multi-chuck. This is the one I personally use on a daily basis. It expands from a 1/32 to a 1/8, no problem whatsoever. All right, when setting up our Dremel, we're gonna go ahead and hit the lock button on the flex shaft when we're putting our Dremel chuck on. Just hand tighten all the way down clockwise until you get a little tightness, and then we're gonna go ahead and leave that open to place our burr in. So now that we have our Dremel chuck on, we're gonna go ahead and place our accessory into the chuck all the way down, then backing it out slightly before pressing the lock button and tightening our accessory. So now that we have our Dremel set up with our multi-chuck and our accessory, we're going to be using a black painted piece of aluminum and going over transferring an image onto the metal itself. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can draw out your original design on a piece of paper and then transfer to the metal, or you can draw directly on the metal, or we can go ahead and print out a picture of any image that you want, get a piece of carbon paper and or transfer paper. We're gonna place the transfer paper dark side down onto the metal itself, using a piece of tape to secure to the paint. Then we're gonna place our image on top of the carbon paper, get it exactly where you want it, and go ahead and tape it down. We're all taped up and now we're ready to transfer. So when transferring, we're gonna wanna use any sort of pin. The best results are with a fine tip pin. So any sort of ink pen that you can find with a finer tip, it's gonna get us a better outline when transferring over. So when transferring your image, you're gonna go ahead and place just a little bit more pressure than you would as just a normal writing with a pen. Just place a little bit more pressure to get through the paper to transfer the image onto the metal. Once we're complete with our transfer, we're gonna go ahead and grab the tape and just go ahead and lightly peel it back. And that's left us with a carbon outline of the Dremel logo. The first accessory that I have today is the 9003, and that's a rectangular shaped tungsten carbide burr. I utilize this for thin detail lines, utilizing the corner of the rectangle and not the top. A typical speed for aluminum, I like to stay about 20 to 25,000 RPMs. The next accessory that I have for you today is a 9901 HP, the Dremel tungsten carbide cutter with a rounded tip and a titanium coating. I use this for stimpling techniques and straight lines. So for stimpling, I like to keep about 20,000 RPMs, and for thicker lines, 25,000 RPMs. The next accessory that I have is the 115 HP, and it's the oval shaped high-speed cutter. I use this a lot for any border work that I'm doing or diamond cuts around the edge. You're gonna go ahead and use this at a lower speed on metal to avoid the point of contact melting. So typically on aluminum, I like to keep around 15,000 RPMs. The 117 HP Dremel accessory is an oval-shaped, high-speed accessory with a titanium coating. I use this a lot for thick lines and stimple work. So when you're running any sort of thick lines or stimple work, I like to keep this one about 25,000 RPMs. The 194 HP high-speed cutter with titanium coating is great to use for any sort of flat top stimple and really fine detail lines. When working on aluminum, I like to keep around 20 to 25,000 RPMs. When starting on an engraving, I typically use the smallest size burr that I have to do the initial outline. After that, I'm going to use a bigger size burr and bold out that line because metal is a very unforgiving surface. So general tips for engraving: when it comes to straight lines, you're going to make sure you have complete control of your flex shaft at all times, utilizing the base of your hand as a support system to keep your line straight. Curves are by far the most difficult aspect when it comes to engraving, mostly because of pressure. So the amount of pressure is going to dictate the size and depth of the actual engraving. So when you're coming up to a curve, you want to slightly decrease the pressure to ensure a smooth transition. The key to this simple engraving technique is to make sure your spacing from dot to dot is consistent and that your pressure remains the same throughout the entire piece. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this gives you some insight on engraving and different techniques and all the awesome tools and accessories that Dremel has to offer.